Hello everyone, and by the title of this video you already know what it is. This is my thought or reason why I think the Kenner original Young Rex, along with his many repaints and many times it's gone into the stores and sales, is by far the best Jurassic Park toy we ever had. Now, before I understand the reasoning why, I want to explain why so. I think that's the same thing, but anyways. When Jurassic Park first came out in 1993, Kenner was already doing the toy line sometime before. So sometimes during the year before, they were planning on making the dinosaurs, especially their toy. However, since the movie was pretty new and they had nothing to base on, many of the dinosaurs they created was based on the novel. Although some, well, not all, did not make to the toy line. But a few of them that were in the novel and in the movie had the coloration of their novel counterpart, which is why in the movie we have a brown T-Rex and in the toy line we have a red Rex, because in the novel the T-Rex was described as red. Unfortunately, that did not go well for the Dilophosaurus. As we know, it looks nothing how it's supposed to look and sound like in the novel version. But as I'm saying, one creature did came from the novel that did do some well, and was by far the most easily obtained dinosaur toy for those that loved it, and that was the Kenner Young Rex. Based on the Young Rex from said novel, this dinosaur was only in the novel and not in the movie's franchise. We did not get a younger T-Rex until The Lost World came out with the Juvie T-Rex, and maybe later on in the franchise, as we may or may not know. One thing is for sure is that the marketing, or the way how they made the Young Rex in the first Jurassic Park line, was incredible. Now, to those that don't know, the Young Rex was actually more towards the line of the Dino Damage toys. There were only 3 of them: the original Kenner Triceratops, the original Kenner Stegosaurus before it gets dropped, and a new sculpt for the Stegosaurus, a much better looking one for the Lost World. But the Young Rex stood out the most because of how well it kinda is. A lot of reason why I think, or I feel that people love the Young Rex more, or have the Young Rex more, because back in the day, not many people had the money or opportunity to get the Red Rex. The Red Rex retailed for $30. This Young Rex only retailed for $20. That was $10 off. And because of that, it was able to sell better. This is Kenner's way of how marketing should work. Because although some of the dinosaurs you can buy in the toy line, it's very difficult for some people to buy the bigger ones, especially when someone wants a T-Rex. For family that either is poor or not having the time to get it, or cannot find it in time for their kid's birthday or the demand day or even Christmas of that year, they got them the Young Rex. It was the second one to get, and is by far much better than the Red Rex in my opinion. Hopefully no hatred. Although its color scheme could use some elements from the Red Rex, I think in the novel, if I remember, it was described as the Red Rex. It had the same coloration or so. But I digress. Anyways, this guy was probably the most mass produced, along with the original Kenner Raptor and of course human figures. And it's much easier to produce because this guy did not require electronics like the Red Rex. And like the Red Rex, it does have a more accurate look to the movies. Instead of shortening the tail like what they do in later dinosaur lines, they lengthen the tail pretty long, If anything, the tail is just as long as the body from here to there. Its design-wise is very unique, as even though the Red Rex itself was a recast of the Stan Winston mold, the Red Rex itself was probably, or the Young Rex itself was probably the first T-Rex to be sculpted by them and not a recast. That would later go for the Bull Rex and the Thrasher T-Rex. Although the Red Rex was the first one to gain popularity in Jurassic Park toy line, and probably the most trophy dinosaur to get in the toy line other than the Carnotaurus, the Young Rex was probably the most common to get and easy to obtain. They could go as low as, well, even some people find them as low as $5 to even $1 to as high as 50, or if inside box it could be 100 plus. And it gets more pricing when it comes with its dino damage, which is probably a bit of a flaw, but dino damage is a unique feature in the Jurassic Park line, and because of how iconic dino damage is, the Young Rex is a really good example of said dino damage. A small piece, not too oddly shaped as a Stegosaurus or the Triceratops, is a very simple shape, meaning it just fits right in no matter what position you put it in. And if you push it in more, it looks nice and blends very well to the body. Although I don't like how they had to choose a reverse side for it, because this does not appear in the T-Rex itself. But I gotta say, my favorite feature of the Young Rex is just how conveniently perfect it is for hand. The hand, or for adult hands, is pretty good, but for young kids, this guy must have been pretty big in his time. Probably dwarfing from the Red Rex, but kids who didn't have the Red Rex found this guy pretty big. I mean, if it fit in his box, it would have been at least this wide. And for kids seeing a T-Rex, it doesn't even have to be a big T-Rex, it just has to be a T-Rex. T-Rex is very iconic, especially since Jurassic Park's release, even more so than that. And because it doesn't have electronics, you can play with it roughly with water. Although over time its paint does deteriorate, it doesn't break easily as the Red Rex does, as although it is a roaring T-Rex, it has some downfalls, such as it does not have the same roar as a T-Rex. I guess they never had a sample of it, and because of that we get that weird screeching noise. I'm not gonna show it, I'm pretty sure everyone knows what it sounds like at this point, and if you don't know, just look it up. And these guys tend to break easier, as the electronic box tend to get stuck. The wire inside will snap, causing the T-Rex to sloop, to cause his head to drip. Also, the legs are very wobbly, and the tail, even though it's nice and large, it is back heavy, and the T-Rex falls down often. Unlike the Red Rex, or the Young Rex, if in the correct position, it just stands very well. And I got two to show. I don't even have to put that one down, correcting his feet, and it already stands. I could do anything to it. It just rubbers back down, and it still stands, unlike the Red Rex, which takes time for it to stand, and even more time if you want it to stand still instead of letting it fall down. And another cool feature, just like the T-Rex, that if you push the under of the mouth just right, it opens and closes the mouth. It's a rubber mechanism, there's no electronics, it's not plastic, so it's rubber, and it's able to do that. It's so cool. Even though the Red Rex does the exact same thing, I think doing that over time with the Red Rex will break the wire, and of course your T-Rex head will slump down. But not this one. There is some stuff inside of it, but it's very soft in there, and you can't really tell. Another cool thing about it is that if you don't have the big T-Rex, it is still play compatible with a human figure. As you could say, this is a dwarf or juvenile or an escaped or enraged T-Rex. going out and on a killing spree, and is very play wise. There's a lot of play to this guy, so much so that you would find young Rex with their paints chipped off, or even worse, with some horde damage causing it. A good example of that is my repainted Red Rex, young Rex, as it does have cut in his lips, cut in its mouth, a lot of damages, even so far that this guy won't stand no more. But that's why I repainted him. He was I used, I guess you could say. You could use it anytime. And that's one cool thing about it, because they're so abundant. I'm pretty sure these guys are very customizable. And I have seen a few customized young Rexes, and they look very, very cool and very highly detailed. And because of how abundant they are, they're probably the most common and easy to get. I know I said that quite a while, but that is true. It is pretty common and very easy to get. And because of that, it's playable to this generation too. Kids these days are just as rough as kids back in the 90s. And so if this guy can survive the test of time for 25 years, I'm pretty sure a reissue of the Young Rex would be an exception. They're so unique looking that it's been repainted at least 4 times in the Jurassic Park line. For Series 2, it was re-released as this base color, but also with a color very similar to the repaint I have. And that one is pretty hard to get, probably the most rare out of them all. The second rarest would have to be the Lost World version, which has a more bold T-Rex natural coloration, although it does have a bit pink, like very bright pink in its eye, in its mouth, and their eyes are not very well detailed as the young Rex's is. It won't focus good enough. And it was re-released for the JP Dinosaurs line when Hasbro acquired the lines. And although not many people find that interesting, is that the young Rex from the re-released was made of hard rubber, and because of that it could not open its mouth mechanics, and it smelled too. It really did. I had that for a while. I didn't like the smell of it, so I had to give it away. Maybe it doesn't smell, maybe it's just mine, but then after that it was replaced with the small React-Attack T-Rex, and then it was then later replaced with a very odd looking Basher and Biter T-Rex. And one thing that made those insufficient in the young Rex is that it was not compatible. You would have a 6 foot tall human, in this case a 375-inch human, right next to a fully grown T-Rex that's probably half his size, and that's just ridiculous. This is why it was named, this is why it was based on the young Rex, because the young Rex is of course a young Tyrannosaurus. And because of that, it is play compatible, because you can say it is a young Tyrannosaurus. I may or may not have described why I really like this guy, but I can't really describe it. It's just epic. There's something about it that makes it so cool and useful and very playable, even to this day. So if it is true that Mattel does own the rights for the original Jurassic Park toy license, that means they probably have the rights to the sculpt, and hopefully the young Rex sculpt is still out there even in the 99. Heck, if the bold T-Rex sculpt was able to last to 2009, there's no way of saying that the young Rex sculpt would last even longer than that. So as I say here, I want to say thank you for watching, and I hope you have some opinions on why you think the Red Rex is a pretty good toy. And if you don't think it's a good toy, what do you think is better than Young Rex? If anything, it's probably the Velociraptor. But even on the Velociraptor, it can be any size and any way, and it can be a bit of an overkill. There's one thing that it does not have that the T-Rex have. It's the fact that a T-Rex can kill it very easily. And They could kill humans and raptors very easily. Raptors can kill human easily, but very hard for T-Rex, as we could see. So there's that. And of course, I want to end off with a good note. If you happen to find a young T-Rex in the wild, on eBay, on Etsy, on whatever you guys buy your stuff online, Amazon, or even in like thrift stores and swap meet, no matter what damage it is on, no matter how incomplete or complete it is, snatch it. You may never know, but you will love it. You will love it. And I hope you guys love this video. I find it very embarrassing for me to do it, and this is kind of a breakthrough for me because I never like talking like these. But for the best Jurassic Park toy, in my opinion, and this first day forward, it's going to be the young Rex. Until Mattel brings us something that probably as far superior as the young Rex or new young Rex, with the exact same feel of skin or rubber, the details, the coloration, maybe even more accuracy, and then I'll put that on top over this. But till then, I am the Jurassic Man, and I hope you agree that Young Rex is also the greatest Jurassic Park toy we ever had, and greatest Jurassic Park toy we will ever have. Thank you for watching, and see ya.